Welcome to the New Humans, New Earth Summit, where our mission is to empower you with inspiration, healing, and support because it's who we become that changes the world. Your host for this session is shamanic teacher, healer, and author of Exploring Our Multidimensional Selves, A Shamanic Perspective, C. Allie Knowlton, MSW, LCSW. Allie has another amazing guest coming right up. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted. I'm delighted to welcome not only the presenter for this particular hour, but also as I said, the one who actually made this whole summit happen. So I would like to introduce Evelyn C. Rysdyk. Is the author of several noted books on shamanism, including The Norse Shaman, Spirit Walking, A Course in Shamanic Power, A Spirit Walker's Guide to Shamanic Tools, Nepalese Shamanic Path, and Shamanic Creativity. Along with her writings, Evelyn is an impassioned shamanic teacher and storyteller with over 30 years of experience working with people who are eager to grow and experience their true power. A featured instructor on the Shift Network for Sounds True and other online international programs, Evelyn launched the online Spirit Passages Academy in 2020. Evelyn is also the founder of the New Humans, New Earth Summit. She can be reached at www.spiritpassages.com. So welcome, Evelyn. And your topic for today is Dismemberment, Rememberment, a traditional shamanic healing for restoration. And can we ever use restoration today? I think we're already, most of us, experiencing dismemberment. So it would be good to know that it can be a positive thing and that there's a healing aspect to it. So welcome, Evelyn.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for hosting. I want to start by talking a little bit about dismemberment, and I don't mean this in the serial killer sort of way. For those of you who are not trained in shamanism, the idea of dismemberment may not sound very savory at all. But in many shamanic cultures, and I would say it's really universal in one form or another, an initiate into the process of becoming a shamanic healer, the shaman of their tribe, they would go through some kind of initiatory experience. And that initiatory experience might be something that is prepared by the elder shamans in that group to put them through some kind of a trial. But there's always another piece that they have to do with the spirits themselves. And dismemberment means being taken apart, right? You're like the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. My one leg was over there, and my other leg was over there. And it's that kind of taking apart, but on the deepest level of who we are. You know, we tend to operate in the world from our persona, our ego. And it's kind of like the, how do I want to say this? It's like the program running in the background all the time. You know, so that part of us is, has made a bunch of decisions about what the world is like and who we are and how everything is supposed to be, and maybe has made some decisions based on unpleasant experiences about our self-worth, about the compassion that is available in the world for us. So there's like this accumulation of learned information that becomes kind of hardwired in us. And so initiates would have to go through some experience where all of that was taken away in a ceremony. And what was left was their experience of their spacious spiritual self. Mm. So, you know, we don't necessarily think of ourselves as spacious. If you're a large person like me, you like space around you so that you can move, but that's not the same as being spacious. You know, we think of outside of us space as being, a place as being spacious. You know, when you're in a high place overlooking the landscape, that feels very spacious. Or if you're standing at the edge of the ocean looking out in that far distance of where the sky meets the water, at the horizon, that feels spacious. But to become aware of ourselves as spacious beings, we are this interesting conundrum. We're a paradox. We are mortal beings. Our bodies have an expiration stamp somewhere on us that we cannot read. And that's probably good. We'd be fretting about it if we could read it. So we have an expiration date at some point for our physical existence. But at the same time, we are this, I think, divine. Each one of us and every being on the planet is this divine light at their core, this radiance, this thing we call soul or spirit, that field of vibration that continues to weave matter has woven us. Yes, we come from human parents, but everything that is tangible at its basis is really kind of crystallized light. It's crystallized vibration. And when we have an experience of that, for some people it's terrifying. Their initiatory experience of having a dismemberment felt really scary because all of the familiar, the way we place ourselves in our lives, goes away. But that the benefit of that is it's like you have an opportunity to choose how to think of yourself next. The talk I just hosted with someone, that we were talking about loss being an opportunity to kind of recreate and kind of plant a new self. And in the shamanic initiate's life, it is to give them that experience of their eternal self, that experience that they are far more than this tangible body, than this nervous system, which is brilliant. We have an extraordinary gift in our nervous system and our senses, but even in its extraordinary nature, it's so limited. And we have an opportunity when we, through dismemberment, it all goes away, and what is left is the you that will be part of eternity always. So you are given this gift of knowing that, first of all, you do not have to ever fear death. That the dying might be frightening, but death itself, you are part of the cosmos, and you will simply return your consciousness to the cosmos again. That we have this receding through that process of receding, like the tide going out of all the things that hold us back. When a shamanic initiate, this novice, has this experience, they have a completely different worldview now on themselves and everything around them. First of all, you recognize that it has a quality of being malleable, because there's a quality of everything, including our physical bodies, that is in process all the time. We turn over ourselves. We're in this creative being that the physical body that we've been given in this lifetime is a creator. It renews itself. So there's this, again, this receding of the feelings of limitation. And simultaneously in that dismemberment, you have the experience of recognizing that when you are in that expanded state, when you have that sense of your own personal spaciousness, your own eternal self, you are closest to seeing that and feeling that and experiencing that in all the different ways that we can experience, that everything around you also has that kind of an aspect. So, it's that great aha moment when, that Eastern greeting that we practiced a great deal when we were in Nepal, where you're saying namaste to someone, the divine in me is seeing the divine in you and honoring it. It's not just a gesture. That initiate has the experience of it's true, that everything around me is really shimmering light with different faces. Perhaps it has leaves, and perhaps it has fur, and perhaps it walks around on two legs like other human beings. But it is that aspect that the shaman then learns is the real reality. Now that sounds heretical, right? That idea that the ephemeral, the most ephemeral part of us, ephemeral, that's the word I'm looking for, ephemeral part, I did it again, that aspect of us is actually the most real. It is actually the most real because it's that aspect that continues to animate this body, that continues that process of renewal that is in everything that we can perceive with our nervous system. And it's kind of like in The Wizard of Oz, when they pull the curtain apart and back and you can see who's really back there. That's what it is. It's like pulling the curtain back and seeing that we're part of this infinitely creative cosmos, that we are walking around with these skins that we think tells us who we are, but we're really this animated energy, this animated vibration that has an opportunity to savor the world through our senses. And so now, whatever experience we have, and my primary teacher, who is my great-great-grandmother, reminds me of this all the time, because she hasn't chosen to incarnate again. I think she's going to hang out with me until I leave, and then we'll both decide to make a different choice afterwards. She reminds me that while you're in a physical body, savor it all. Put it all, she says, put it all in your gathering basket. Those wonderful baskets when people go out to cut flowers for a bouquet, they have that long basket that hangs on their arm. She says, fill that basket while you are alive with all the experience. Don't shut any of it down. Don't try to ignore it. Put it in the basket because it's part of your experience. And she says, when you move over to where I am, so she no longer has a body, she says, you will not have that nervous system. You will not be able to smell sweet flowers. You will not have a tongue to taste food. You will not have eyes to see beauty. You will not have fingers to touch things that are soft or cold or like the face of a child. You won't have a nervous system. But what you will have is all that you filled your gathering basket with. You will have all of that to savor. So when we get that perspective of this spacious self and recognize that when we're in our physical body, we have the opportunity to bring all of our experience into that basket and then choose, because we're here for a finite time, how do we want to use the time that we have? Do we want to simply mark time by crossing out X's on the calendar, like a prisoner in a cell? Or do we want to use the time we've been given in a way that nurtures us and nurtures that which is around us? It's truly a choice. And the initiate in the process of making that transition from a person in the tribe that now is going to be on that path to become the shaman, they get that same choice. I've been able to see what's behind the curtain. I have a different awareness of myself, and I'm getting shivers as I say that different awareness of what being a living being is. It's this fragile container that we have for a little while, but we have this whole other part of us. And that when we operate with that awareness of we have this, that we're here as divine beings, and divine in whatever way that you think of the divine, because we think of the divine having faces, and we think of the divine being energy, and we think of the divine in lots of different ways. But you can't help but being a divine being, that which has been light animated into form. Light animated into form. And so I actually use dismemberment, that experience of dismemberment, often in my life. Rather than just having it be one initiatory experience, I do it fairly frequently in my life. And I do it for a reason. because our senses can be very seductive, and they can remind us of things that aren't quite true. Because they're also, even for all the brilliance that they have, they're very limited, as I've said before. So when I start to feel my life getting a little small, maybe I've heard a little bit too much bad news. I don't watch the television news, but you hear a little bit of too much bad news, or something has happened to have me have that smaller perspective of myself in the world. You get disappointed with the way other people behave, and the way wars are happening, and disrespect of different people, and disrespect to the point of really taking away their lives. It can make you have that, that I affectionately refer to when I go to my osteopath, is like I have that feeling of being a crushed beer can again. To have, that where you can take a deep breath and remember, oh, that's only one aspect. That feeling of being compressed and feeling all that sadness that's in the world, the anger that's in the world, the separation, the things that we have to face about changing our ways so that the earth becomes more self-sustaining again. When we get that larger perspective, it really is like, having the oxygen mask put on you again. You can feel not only that enormity of who you are, but somehow it reanimates my physical body. My cells, I think of my cells, and the DNA in every cell is far wiser than what's between my ears. It has the ability to continue to remake me. This molecule that has been passed to us by all of our ancestors and tinkered with by viruses along the way, and has a little bit of viral DNA, and we have a little bit of bacterial DNA in us, because we're a life form that's evolved a long way here. And it is this creative matrix. Life is like a creative matrix. It's like we are part of this creative matrix. And what is it that we want to create? That comes back when you've opened up the space of who you are again. And I know that you've experienced dismemberments as well, and yours may be different in form than mine are, but that I'm sure you could speak to the way that you feel afterwards. Not just my words, but I know you, Ali, have had dismemberment. So what is that feeling that you would describe afterwards?
Well, actually, I had a question.
All right.
I wanted to ask you. So you're talking more about an initiate, or someone who's really already like on being called to, or on a shamanic path. What about everyday people? For instance, my first dismemberment was my very first journey, and I had no idea what it was about. And I was burned up in a fire. Absolutely nothing of me existed. And yet I wasn't afraid at all. There was this feeling of, and I'd had no idea what it was called, or what it was, the purpose of it, or anything. My spirit, obviously my guides that hadn't even met me yet, I hadn't met personally yet, knew that it was time for me to have a dismemberment. And the rememberment was meeting my power animal and feeling that flood of unconditional love. So I wanted to make sure that you address the fact that this could be an ordinary person, not necessarily a shamanic practitioner or on a shamanic path, that experienced dismemberment in their lives, and not just earthling dismemberment, we call it, when something terrible happens, but some kind of a spiritual experience, or maybe even in a dream. We've heard people in a dream that talk about, in my dream, I suddenly, was totally taken apart, and I became a seed, and then the seed was, and they go on, and they have no idea that it's a classic shamanic healing experience. So I just want to make sure that the listeners understand that it can be for everybody.
I will actually even go one step further than that,
Yeah.
because we are all being initiated all the time.
Yeah.
And we get to choose what we're being initiated into. And that sounds a little loopy, I know, but I'll explain. So life is always challenging us. I don't care how much money you have, how grand a job you have, life will find a way to challenge you. And challenging you is part of how we grow. And that if we can remember that we're never cooked,
Yeah.
we're always in the process. We're always in the process of becoming.
Grandma says we'll have stuff till our last breath, but we can move through it much easier and quicker.
Right. But sometimes you get a rigid idea of who you are, or you kind of like the persona that you've created, and you go, okay, I'm done. We're not ever done. We have an infinite capacity for evolution.
Yeah.
Maybe not physically while we're in a body, but we have an infinite capacity to continue to evolve. Our brains are plastic until our last breath. And I don't mean polyvinyl chloride. What I mean is the brain has the capacity to grow new neurons, create new neural networks for as long as we live. We can continue learning our entire lives. And that includes learning about who we are and choosing again and again and again who we want to be in the world. And to not allow ourselves to be limited by our experience.
Exactly.
And that, sometimes an experience can drop you to your knees, can absolutely drop you to your knees. And feel that while you're down there, because that is the truth in that moment. But the larger truth is you can get up. Even if you feel like I can't do it, you can get up. And you rely on a force inside that says, life wants you to get up. The life inside of every one of your cells is saying, get up and go forward. And so, in my experience, using dismemberment as a way to refresh the mind into what is really true.
Yeah.
Because you don't hear that in your ordinary life, that you're capable of this fantastic evolution your entire life. You have the capacity to rewire what's between your ears over and over and over again. And you don't just rewire here, because you have the same neural tissue in your heart and the same neural tissue in your intestines, your whole gut. So you are this medium for growth your entire life. I don't care how old you are. You have the capacity to continue to evolve. But in order to do that, I think we need to have our vision renewed. I tend to be a visual person, so I will use visual metaphor quite often. But you need to have that refreshing experience, like have a new vision. And some people do that by gallivanting around the world, or going to a high place to look out, or going to the ocean, or whatever it might be. But to recognize that we can do that with a practice inside of ourselves, where we feel ourselves become part of that higher consciousness that is continually making and remaking everything, the stars, the planets. All of that is constantly in process. It happens at a speed at which we necessarily can't see in our mortal bodies, because these are huge time spans. But we can witness it in our own body. The fact that if you get a cut, and your body's wisdom knows how to heal that cut, you clean it, you maybe protect it with a little bandage, maybe a little spot of something on there to make sure you don't have any germs in it, and the body will make new skin. Now, that's a simple thing. But if we ever bring our focus and attention to that, that's an incredible miracle. That the body, without us saying, okay, now heal, looking at that finger and going, okay, heal. And It sounds like, dragging your dog up alongside of you. We don't have to do that because the body has its own wisdom. And it has that wisdom because it's been woven in such a way by the vibrations that manifest themselves as particles in our body, atomic particles, that vibration has a kind of wisdom to it. That life has a kind of wisdom to it. The expression of life in all the different beings. If you think of all the different species on the planet, all the species of plants just in your yard, or the species of birds that come into your yard, they're woven of that same kind of intelligent light. But we lose sight of it because all we're seeing is, oh, there are birds at the feeder. We're not seeing them as light. We're not seeing them as this radiance that has intelligence, that is able to fly. If you think about what we call instinct as human beings, that the hummingbird, who is no bigger than the tip of my thumb, can fly 2,500 miles across the Gulf of Mexico to go down to where it's warmer for the winter. Now, how does that bird, if its entire body is this big, its brain is very small, right? And yet it understands how to change the way it eats. It goes from nectar to little gnats. You imagine that long beak now has to go and catch gnats. So it's building up its body for a trip that will cross the Gulf of Mexico without stopping to eat. And whether you know this or not, hummingbirds have to go into a kind of torpor every night so as not to use up all the energy that they've eaten in the day. So they have to fly that distance without stopping to eat, without stopping to sleep. And they are woven in a way by the intelligence of nature and the intelligence of their particular species and the intelligence of the cosmos that gave all the bits for us to make bodies, to be able to do that feat. And so when we remember, because the other half of dismembering, when you kind of lose the limitations in a dismemberment, then comes the rememberment. And it's not remembering.
This is the question I wanted to ask about rememberment. I think sometimes just the very word, sometimes people worry about, am I going to be remembered? And what is that like? Because, there's a fundamental fear of letting go of anything that we know and recognize. And but I can see that you're beginning to move into that, because I think it's important to recognize that kind of in our body fear of, I understand about dismemberment, whether it's from life experience or from having an unexpected one in a journey or a dream or some spiritual retreat. But I think that fear is a primal one and what happens if people say we get remembered, but what happens if it doesn't happen at the same time that the dismemberment happens? So those are I think it's two questions maybe, but that I'd like you to address.
Sorry, I'm having a good fidget. I've been sitting in this chair for a while.
Yeah, I know.
I think what we're afraid of as human beings is nothing. I don't mean that we're not, it's the nothingness. Like, what happens when it all goes away? Do I go away? What happens if it's a nothing, if it's this yawing void that happens after we have this experience of dismemberment or when we die? And part of what I love about dismemberment is it's an opportunity to be reacquainted each time with that which is forever. And it's not darkness and it's not emptiness. It's this radiant field that is in process of creating all the time. And that we have this kind of what people refer to as the light body. We're part of that. So in some ways, it gives me, I'm not a religious person at all. Even though I was raised in a church, I'm not religious. My experience, because I'm also a Taurus, I like to have the experience in the earth plane, right? my experience of a dismemberment and a rememberment lets me know in a way that someone telling me couldn't tell me. They can say, "Oh, it's going to be okay, and you'll be fine when it's all over. You know, you'll meet your loved ones." Well, you just simply go back into that radiant field where they all still exist. And to me, what a comfort for me to live my life to the fullest, and knowing, again, I've got an expiration date on me. This is my opportunity while I'm here in the earth plane to invest in my physicality and give the gifts that I'm capable of giving. So rather than being afraid, I'll share the very first dismemberment I had, because it was the thing. It was much more visual. The dismemberments I do now are a little different. The first dismemberment, I was completely, and in the presence of my loving guides, my body was completely destroyed. I was on a kind of stone kind of table, you know, a very sort of ritualistic feeling. And I was obliterated. And the only thing I experienced myself as is kind of a point of light that I didn't have eyes to really see, but there was a part of me that observed the scene. And I was in a high place. And from my observer self, I was able to see that there was a long line going down the mountain. All different kinds of beings. Some of them were animals, some of them were birds, some of them were human beings of different cultures, different time periods. It was very interesting, and some of them were clearly my ancestors. And each was carrying something from the natural world. So they were holding a seashell, or they were holding an animal, or they were holding a branch with leaves. And what they did, each in turn, they came up one side of the mountain, did what they did on the table, and then they went down and disappeared the other side. Each one of them brought one of these aspects of the natural world and laid them on the table. And they laid them in the shape of a physical body. And so I saw them building my body, or what would become my body, with aspects of all the places, all the beings, all the life on earth. My body was built out of all those, you know, there was like a little corn cob here and a skate array, you know, the things that are, swim in the ocean in one place, and you know, I had an acorn for one of my nipples, and you know, all these things that were put together in this arrangement that these beings brought. You know, and animals brought things and dropped them down, and it was really quite extraordinary to see. In fact, I painted it at one point, or the best representation I could of it. And then it was like it was enrobed again in my familiar face and my familiar body. And what I got from that was two things. One is I had the experience of being aware of my body from outside my body, looking at what was happening and realizing that even when there was nothing there of me, I was still there in a different way. So that was beautiful.
Pretty profound.
That was profound. But the second thing was to think of myself as woven from the earth plane, woven from Mother Nature. And that really helps me to understand my physical body in a different way.
That's the difference between knowing it intellectually and totally embodying it.
Exactly. And we know from an evolutionary point of view, you know, we have a common ancestor with things like starfish and sea urchins, which you can't imagine beings that are more different than we are. And you go back far enough, you know, it's two bacteria that got together that figured out how to become one organism, and that's how we have mitochondria in our cells. I mean, we were woven of the stuff here. And so it's this marvelous sense of being embraced by what is all around us while we're in physical form that continually makes and remakes our physical body as well. It's all the elements that are here. Being, we need to have iron in our blood and calcium and phosphorus in our bones, and we have to breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. So we're in that dance of the elements of the earth, and we carry inside of us the history of life inside of every one of our cells. But we also have this experience of being someone that can look at who we are with a kind of compassion and love. Because this perspective gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves and everyone around us with a different framework.
And say more about that, because I think the piece about compassion for ourselves is one of the things that we're here to incorporate in our lives that's been lost somewhere along the way. And what you're introducing is another way of remembering that it's really okay to have compassion for yourself.
Well, and when you fall out of compassion, you are actually reflecting what the people around you might be experiencing. So even that is a teaching when we fall out of compassion with ourselves. But to me, to recognize that, this is a fragile thing, but it's a remarkable thing.
Mm.
And to have the gift of being able to have the sensory experience of being here on earth is a gift.
Yeah.
And when we have the experience of a dismemberment and we can get that perspective, it's like getting some distance on something, where you can view it differently. You view your own life as precious. But you can't just view your own life as precious, because you realize everything else around you, everything in being, is also precious.
And I know you say that you do that pretty regularly, and especially when the realities of the world that we see around us is so prevalent. I've heard you say that sometimes you ask for dismemberment and rememberment to experience exactly what you're talking about, that you're part of something far, like being able to hold the larger picture in your physical body.
Which is hard to do when you're in a physical body. That's why I love the experience, because our senses they limit, the idea of feeling disconnected, because we couldn't be close to the people we love during COVID.
Right.
In some ways, that's only because our senses weren't able to make contact with them. But they're part of the planet. They seem far away. They feel out of reach. But it's inescapable that we're all connected. And it's hard to hold onto that idea when we're sort of stuck in the smallness of just our physical experience. But when we have that big picture again and realize that everyone that has ever been or will be is part of that radiant field, that we think of ourselves having a light body, but really we're just part of that weaving. And when we recognize that we're being held all the time, we are interwoven, inextricably connected to everything all the time, it begins to change your mindset. It begins to remind you that if you're in a funk, it's just because you forgot what's really true.
Exactly.
It's not somebody's fault. It's just that my senses have fooled me again into thinking that I'm all by myself, or that my life is a struggle right now. It's having that other perspective that you can bounce things against, and instead of having this feeling of being lost here on the earth plane, recognizing you can't ever be lost because you're woven into the fabric of life. So
the part of what you're saying is that you don't really even need to have someone guide the process. You basically need to give permission to have this experience that's an innate part of us.
True, absolutely true. And to be guided the first time, but to recognize that you can do this anytime. The way I do it, and I'll talk you through this, folks, so you don't have to worry. I do this actually as I climb into bed. I get as comfortable as my body and with its arthritis can be, and I make sure that it's nice and dark so that I don't have a blindfold on, so that I'm really in that internal experience. And then I surrender to that field of radiance. And it's not radiance that we can see necessarily, because they're much higher vibrations of light than visible light. Visible light is all that we can see, but there are much, much higher vibrations. And this cosmos of vibrations pops electrons in and out of form. So it's that creative matrix, the good matrix, not the one from the movie, the good matrix that makes life possible, makes matter possible, makes everything, the stones and the soil under our feet, possible. So lying in bed, being upheld by my mattress, I give thanks to that field, and I allow myself, because it's not visible to me, I surrender and allow, and I'll talk you all through this process, I allow it to be known to me, and I allow it to be sensorily, with my skin, allow it to be known to me, and I allow it to dissolve my body so that it can be rewoven in harmony and balance in that moment. And my experience of that is like a renewal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I give myself permission to be rewoven, because some part of me still knows I'm lying in my bed.
Yeah.
But there's this spacious experience of being part of this breathtakingly large, this infinite field. So before I say any more about it, I really want to give everybody an experience.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, you can wiggle in your chair like I'm about to do. I'm going to be hopping in my chair here. I have a chair that I slide out of. Oh, that's better. Try not to take down the curtain in the process. So get as comfortable as you can where you are. Close your eyes. And take a few breaths, because you've been listening to me rabbit on for a while here. And as Puma said our first day together, breathe in with gratitude and exhale with a feeling of love. You have a wonderful body. However well it works, it's still a wonderful, wonderful thing. Or perhaps wonder-filled thing. And just allow yourself to settle into that body. And as you're doing so, bring your awareness very slowly. We don't have to rush this process. Bring your awareness to the left side of your body. And using your brilliant mind, tune into the space just beyond your skin. And when you bring your attention to the skin, you might already begin to feel a sense of something moving just beyond your skin. It's very subtle, but it's almost like being tickled. Or you might feel it like a buzz. It's where you're contacting, where your nervous system just allows that little whiff of that fabric, that radiant field of infinite vibrations. And invite in that ultimate creativity. Invite that into your body to give you that opportunity to be rewoven. And as that's happening, bring your attention as far as you can bring your attention off to the left and feel that that field of vibration goes far beyond you, what you can perceive. And now in front of you, do the same thing. Feel just beyond your skin. Notice that there's something that you doesn't really feel like you can feel it with your nervous system, but somehow you can feel it's there. Allow that radiant field of infinite vibrations to enter in and dissolve all those things that feel harsh, that feel limiting. And as that's happening, bring your attention as far from the front of your body as you can bring your attention, and notice that radiant field of infinite vibration stretches far beyond what you can perceive. And now bring your attention to the right side of who you are, just beyond your skin, and feel with that radiant field is just nudging you ever so gently to say, come back to that radiant field, and allow it to mingle with the vibrations that are you and dissolve you again into that perfection of light. And finally now, your back and your bottom in the chair, the back of your legs, the back of your head. If you're sitting in a chair like I am, notice that that field is upholding you. To me, it feels like being suspended in a deep water column, upheld by the vibration itself that's all around you, that it's holding you. And in its embrace, allow it to come in with gratitude. Thank you for coming in to dissolve me, to renew me. And as this dissolution is happening to your body, this dismemberment, bring your attention to the part of you that remains, the part of you that remains. And I'm going to turn on a little more of the getting rid of the background sound. There we go. Because there's a lawnmower in our dismemberment. There we go. So allow yourself to tune in to that aspect of you that's still present. You might feel it as a spark. You might feel yourself as so expansive that you've become almost like the light itself. And feel the joy in those vibrations. To me, they feel like a room full of toddlers laughing. The kind of laughter that makes you laugh along with them. It gives you this sense of joy and spaciousness and brilliant light. Allow yourself to tune into that aspect of who you are, even as your body is being rewoven by all these exquisitely intelligent vibrations. And give yourself the gift of just allowing yourself to feel the spaciousness of your light. The vibrations that weave you have an intelligence that doesn't have to be directed by you. You're part of it. The light of who you are is part of that beautiful creation that you see when you're back with your nervous system, that you feel with your nervous system, that you hear with your nervous system. And when you feel ready, bring that awareness, that larger awareness, to embrace where your body was and feel it becoming physical again. That those vibrations have woven you anew. They are weaving you new bones and organs, pristine. They are weaving you a new circulatory system, a new nervous system, a new lymph system, new lungs and hearts. You're weaving new eyes and ears. And in truth, you have been changed by this experience. It might be subtle to your physical body, but you are being rewoven again and choosing to have that larger sense of who you are as this magnificent, brilliant expression of the divine, of that infinite field of vibrations, that radiance weaving itself over and over into plants and cells and trees and tigers and bears and the most beautiful insects and the dragonfly and the hummingbird. That's you too. You are made of that. Made of that. And allow your body to become home again for you, even though you have that spacious view, and feel that body as this beautiful way to move in the world, to see the world and taste the world and savor it with your senses. And to have compassion for that body that is limited in some way. It can only see the spectrum, not the infrared or the ultraviolet like animals and insects and birds can see. And it can only hear audible sounds that human beings can hear, not the deep sound of whales or the high sounds that bats make when they talk to one another, or the sounds that your dog can hear that you wonder when they cock their head, what is it that they hear? And that you have maybe as you age more limited movement than you had when you were a flexible child. And so have compassion for that vehicle that's woven of light, that has the ability still to be in the earth plane, to savor the world with all of the senses that you have. To touch, to hear, to taste, to see, to smell, even if you only use one at a time. And all of those informing you of the other travelers woven of light who may have forgotten. So we can have compassion for them, even if we find their decisions to be terrible. Even if we want to dislike them intensely or even hate them for the choices that they're making that affect other people, we can have compassion even for them because they've forgotten that they're woven, that they have been woven in that same weaving that all of us are in. That every life form and every stone and every cloud that passes in the sky, all of it has been woven from that same light, and they've forgotten. And so they're trying to solve their fear using the medicine of grasping, of trying to use their power over someone else, to try to feel that sense of power that is truly an innate part of all of us, because we're woven of brilliance, of radiance, of the infinite. And so they're misguided by the illusions because they have forgotten that larger sense of who they are. And each one of us that holds on to this awareness changes our collective, because we as a species are hardwired to one another. Our feelings are contagious, and we impact each other even with our thoughts. So as we are remembered, not just as human beings, but as these radiant beings that are connected to everything in the cosmos, that have the blessing of a physical existence, where we can touch other beings that are woven of that same light. And we can lavish love on them and caring on them. And in equal measure, lavish that same love and caring for ourselves. And with another breath of gratitude in for all that is sweet and beautiful in this world, and then to exhale love, particularly for those who have forgotten who they are. And gently bring your awareness now back to the room in which you're sitting or lying down. Bring yourself back to this skin bag that holds you right now. With all that helps you to negotiate the earth plane. And that you are this extraordinary being. You're capable of so much. You were wired that way. You were made to be capable of marvelous things when you remember that you are this radiant being. And you bring that radiance into a life where you can use your physical existence to help make the world a better place by the way you think and the way you feel and what you do as well. And so just allow that all to settle in. All of you out there are sisters and brothers. You are loved ones of the cosmos. We are all loved ones of the cosmos. The cosmos made everything possible with this radiant field, all these particles that make up the atoms in our bodies, that make up the atoms that make our earth. And creativity brings beauty into the world so that you're a beautiful being. You are beautiful.
So you really are talking about being, aren't you? That our most important challenge and gift right now is being.
And from our place of being, taking action. Because we do make effects in the world. We can't help but make effects in the world. But when we're in that place of awareness, in our true place of being, not small self, but that big self that we just experienced, then our doings flow from a completely different place. Exactly. A different emotional place, a different heart space, a different way of thinking. And then our doings hold magic.
So Evelyn, I don't know how, on behalf of everyone, thank you for your wisdom and for being on this earth, being a spokesperson for multitudes of people and living what you teach. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being my host. And I'm going to leave the session and Art will start the next recording. That is our segue.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing session of the New Humans, New Earth Summit, where our mission is to empower you with inspiration, healing, and support because it's who we become that changes the world. For recordings of all sessions, plus an amazing VIP gift bundle full of courses and resources from our knowledgeable speakers, upgrade to a VIP for only $97. If you have any questions or problems during the summit, email our support team at support@erfsummit.com. Stay tuned. We have another fantastic speaker coming right up.